Why is the state not looking at putting an embargo on that?
As a Telangana person, I will not accept.
How do ordinary folks deal with this?
You're watching News 9 Live. I am Shweta Kothari. Padma Vibhushan awardee and Chairman Emeritus of Tata Sons Ratan Tata died at Breach Candy Hospital in Mumbai on Wednesday night. He was 86-year-old and was in critical condition in intensive care unit of the hospital. Now, earlier this week, Ratan Tata shared an update on his health, stating that he was undergoing routine medical investigation due to age-related conditions. He was admitted late Sunday night between 12:30 to 1 a.m. after experiencing low blood pressure. He was being treated in the ICU when he died. Sharing the tragic news, Tata Sons chairman N. Chandrasekaran said that we bid farewell to Ratan Tata. He was a truly uncommon leader whose immeasurable contributions have shaped not only Tata Group but also the very fabric of our nation. Chandrasekaran described Tata, like many others, as a friend, mentor and guide, noting that under his leadership, starting in 1991, Tata Group significantly expanded its global presence while also upholding its ethical values. Now, Ratan Tata's mortal remains will be kept at NCPA for darshan between 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Maharashtra government has declared a one-day mourning in respect of Ratan Tata's death. All government buildings will have the national flag at half-mast. Ratan Tata's funeral will be conducted with all state honours post 3:30 p.m. today. Ratan Tata leaves behind a rich legacy, a legacy we are remembering today on this show. And joining us to talk more about that legacy is B. Muthuraman. He's the former vice chairman of Tata Steels. With me is my colleague Rakesh Khar. Muthuraman, thank you very much, sir, for taking time out. This is a solemn occasion. I'm sure you're remembering Ratan Tata just as we are today.
Extremely well, extremely. I have known him for several years. I have known him for something like more than 30 years. And out of the 30 years, I have worked very closely with him for about 15 years. So I know that person very well, and his remarkable qualities and his remarkable achievements cannot be forgotten by anybody, any Indian.
All right. And you know, you talked about his remarkable qualities. You've worked with him for 30 years. Perhaps there's no better person today who can vouch for his humility, his leadership, and his generosity, which he was known for as a person of multitudes, not just a very well-known industrialist, but also somebody who was extremely down-to-earth, extremely humble, responded to everybody in the best of his capacity. Muthuraman, take us through your association, sir, with Ratan Tata. Where did it start? Share with us the journey.
I first knew Mr. Ratan Tata only when he took over as the chairman of the Tata Group in 1992. Before that, I had met him once or twice, but I had come to know him intensely after that. Between 92 and 2000, he used to come to Jamshedpur very often because Tata Steel was in difficulties those days. He had lots of challenges to overcome, and he had a big role to play in the transformation of Tata Steel in the years 1992 to 2000. Then when I became the managing director in 2001, I reported directly to Mr. Tata, so I worked very closely with him. And then later on as vice chairman of Tata Steel from 2009 to 2014. See, Mr. Tata's business principles, his business philosophy is exactly the same as that of our founder. And I can't do anything better than repeat the words of our founder, Jamshedji Nasaruwanji Tata. He said, the prime purpose of an industrial corporation is to improve the quality of life of people around. In order to do that prime purpose well, you must run your enterprises well and profitably, so that part of the profits can go back to the society. So he put the society at the central purpose of a business enterprise, which really means that creating value for society, creating value for environment, creating value for all stakeholders, rather than create value only for the owners of the company. And this is a very important, shall we say, mindset change among the industrial corporations of the world. And I am now beginning to see world industries are adopting a little bit more, leaning towards more and more again on this culture. That's the first thing. And he continued where our founder had left, and founders deputies had left. So he had carried on and he did it even better than what the people who became chairman earlier to him. Apart from that, his own personal as a person, he's a very strategic. He's many persons combined into one. He's a right brain person from a point of view of he loves paintings, he loves dogs, he loves humanity, he loves people, he's very compassionate, he's very generous, he loves dogs. I mean, he's got a variety of interests other than technology and strategy and business and so on. He's an outstanding technologist. Anything to do with technical in nature, he sort of absorbs it immediately, irrespective of his background. He is one of the outstanding automobile engineers in the world, I think. He's an aviation expert. He understands steel extremely well. He understands automobiles. He understands. He has a very digital mindset. Now, to combine these kind of qualities with the other side of qualities like humane approach, compassionate, love for people, generosity, caring for well-being of the poor, caring for affirmative action of the downtrodden and poor of India. Now, a combination of this kind of person is very, 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 very rare.
Absolutely.
In the world. And Mr. Ratan Tata is one of those very few people in the world who are able to combine these two competing qualities extremely well. That is what is remarkable about this person.
All right, Rakesh, it's remarkable. His journey is remarkable. He's equally famous among his peers as much as he is on social media for all his philanthropy. But talking about steel particularly, where Muthuraman was also, instrumental in reviving that metals fortune in India as well as in the UK. I think that is also a formidable legacy that he leaves behind.
Absolutely, Shweta. I think, Mr. Ratan Tata is distinct in many, many ways. There are many attributes as Mr. Muthuraman just outlined. Mr. Ratan Tata, in my understanding, is one industrialist who, decades ago coined the word social contract and social capital. These terms have become commonplace in business parlance across the world today, but I think he's the real pioneer in this concept of, living a life as a business for many people and impacting them directly. Mr. Muthuraman, I would like to, thank you for joining us on this show. It's a solemn day. I just want to understand, as a promoter-led, group, which is Tata's, with so many diverse companies, how is it that Mr. Ratan Tata enabled, so many individual brands to become big-ticket, champions of change at India Inc.? Mr. Rusi Modi became a brand in himself. He became an institution. Mr. J.J. Irani, Mr. Muthuraman, you with us today. We don't have many examples. So what led to, individuals making that striking contribution even when Mr. Ratan Tata stood like a colossus?
Mr. Ratan Tata is a great person in delegation. He gives a free hand to work and think and so on. In all my reporting years of 15 or 18 years of reporting to him, I have never received an instruction from him. I have received guidance from him. I have received advice from him. I've been coached by him. But I have never had an instruction from him that this is the way that you must do it. So he gives an enormous amount of free hand to his executives and make them develop by observing him, by listening to him and so on. I think that is one of the hallmarks of good leaders, that you make the other people flower on their own instead of, putting forcing some thoughts on their minds to adapt to your own way of thinking. It's one of the fantastic qualities that Mr. Ratan Tata possessed.
Mr.
I think that's one of the
reasons. Yeah, please go ahead.
No, please go ahead. Please ask.
No, so we do know that he had a hands-on and hands-off approach, which in itself is a model which is difficult to replicate, that Mr. Ratan Tata represented. But there would be movements in the group, especially in Tata Steel, where there were challenges, business challenges of transition. How do you see him in the past dealing with those challenges, where there are people issues, there are process issues, there are technology issues, and there are business landscape issues? Can you recall some of the incidents for us, for our viewers, to understand the enigma called Mr. Ratan Tata?
From Tata Steel, let me recall a couple of instances. By the year 1990 or 1991, Tata Steel had become a very, I would say, a dead duck. Because long years of administrative control, not allowing the steel prices to go up, controlling the distribution of steel in India. We were all under administrative control. So what you had to produce, you had to ask the government. What you had to sell, you had to ask the government. What prices you want to charge, you need to government's permission. Now, with this kind of approach between 1947 and 1991, no steel company can work efficiently. So these long years of administrative control had made Tata Steel very bulky, inefficient, slow moving and so on, which is not good for the day and liberalized era. It was during that time that Ratan Tata used to make visits to Jamshedpur very, very often. Almost at the drop of a hat, he'll be in Jamshedpur to consult, talk to us, lead us into the transformation process. The transformation process that was led by my predecessor, Dr. Irani, between 1992 and 2000, had a big influence from Mr. Ratan Tata on the way that he conducted these companies, guided companies' operations through Dr. Irani and through all of us senior people at the company at that time. It was actually a remarkable thing. He wouldn't take interest in a company if there is no challenge. He would go to Tata Motors very often because there is a big challenge of transforming a truck company into a highly skilled motor company or a car company. So there was a big transformation that is required in the mindset. Similarly, in Tata Steel, there was a big transformation that was required from a single plant focused, domestically oriented company to an international giant or an international mindset. That transformation of we can do anything in the world, we will become the best, we will become the cheapest producer of steel in the world, or we will dominate the automobile industries with superior quality products. Now, this kind of world-beating mindset came to Tata Steel actually during the years 1992, 93 onwards. And I would give great credit to Mr. Ratan Tata for that. He would spend time with companies where there is a challenge. He would not spend time with the companies where he finds it's just an incremental operations that are going on.
Mr. Muthuraman, I have often been to Jamshedpur and interacted with people there. Tata Steel takes great pride in, fourth, fifth generation, employees, which is not a common trend today. I don't think loyalty is at a premium in corporate India and even globally as such. So was it a manifestation of Mr. Ratan Tata's deep, affection for people who have employees invested faith in that company and then going down the line and, keeping the tradition alive?
No, it dates, I would say, even back before even Mr. Ratan Tata in terms of being good to employees. For example, let me tell you, in the year 1992, after these 40 years of socialistic era of governing steel companies, we were having a huge employee force. We were having something like 92,000 people for producing and selling 3 million tons of steel, which would have normally required about 10,000-15,000 people. That is the result of long years of administrative control by the government of India. We had to take some serious steps and very severe steps, which we did between 1992 to 2000, where we actually reduced manpower by 45,000 people, which is one of the most difficult tasks that has been achieved anywhere in the world. And Dr. Irani and Mr. Ratan Tata particularly stood in the middle of all that. It was an unpopular decision, but the kind of separation, both financially and also medical-wise and other facilities-wise, what Tata Steel gave it to the employees is unheard of, is even today unheard of in the history of any steel industry anywhere in the world. If an employee was going out at the age of 40, he got a salary of 20 years as if he was the employee of the company. So this kind of, and people were trained for another alternative jobs. You have to make Tata Steel survive. At the same time, you have to be good to the people of Tata Steel for having worked for so long. So it is a balanced combination of these two which made Mr. Ratan Tata and our senior leaders take those decisions at that point in time.
Brilliant. Before I hand over back to Shweta, my colleague, I have one last question. Tata is a very large family, and typical of Indian large families, there are issues and challenges, what we call the sibling rivalries. I have, had an opportunity to interact with senior leadership across Tata Group companies, and somehow I got the impression that he was at peace with all the companies, and as you rightly mentioned, that wherever there was a challenge, he would shift focus to that particular company or that particular business and set it right and come back to his other loves. But I have heard people say who are close to Mr. Tata that hotels and aviation was his first love, would you buy that and steel would be probably, somewhere down the road? Or that's incorrect?
Yeah, I personally and some of my colleagues have had arguments and discussions with Mr. Tata on the subject. That I have always felt, for example, steel is a more complicated subject than automobiles. He doesn't agree with that, and he keeps on that sort of teasing me that steel is simpler than automobiles. I have never agreed with him on that score. But please understand one thing: it is not the product which makes something complicated or simple. It is a process. It is your aspirations and so on. It is like a 100-meter runner. If somebody wants to run at 15 seconds, there is no challenge. If somebody wants to run at 9 seconds, I think there is a big challenge. There is a very big difference. The running is the same. It's similarly with companies. What you want to achieve in that company is what makes the process challenging. And it is true that he likes automobiles because there was a challenge at that point in time.
Absolutely.
It is true that he likes aviation because there was indeed another challenge. And I wish he had been alive now because there is a big challenge with Air India's transformation that will happen surely in the next maybe 4 or 5 years time. And he would have loved to have been a part of that.
All right, Muthuraman, I believe someone's at the door, sir, but we'll let you go for now. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on this solemn day. We are, of course, remembering Ratan Tata and taking away from what Muthuraman said, Rakesh. Obviously, aviation and automobile were some of the things that he loved apart from steel. And aviation was a story where he actually won the last few years of his life. If one of the milestones that really stood out, I believe, would be Air India, the reacquisition of Air India.
Absolutely. I go back to 1994, if I don't remember the exact month. I had done a story in Economic Times talking about Government of India formally rejecting Tata Singapore Airlines proposal for setting up an airline. And I didn't speak to Mr. Tata directly, but I spoke to people who were close to him. He was absolutely, disappointed that, his pet project, that is aviation, couldn't take off. Now, we all know that, as you rightly said on the, Aston band, he won back Air India. And this was the time to, make it a case study as a big global Make in India airline story. I hope he is set in the process already in motion, and his leadership team will take it through. But Air India obviously has some significant challenges.
Absolutely. And for the benefit of our viewers, he was the Tata Group chairman from 91 up until 2012. He came back in 2016, and that is when the big feud with Cyrus Mistry came to the spotlight. Perhaps the only time we've actually heard of Ratan Tata embroiled in a controversy.
Well, I mean, in a long career where we have so many pluses, I personally, it's not a day to, criticize anyone, but I guess it isn't the brightest spot in his, career as a promoter-led, CEO who has so many pluses to his credit. What went wrong with Cyrus Mistry and what happened inside the company is, we still don't have the full picture what exactly, because he had appointed him. It's not that someone, imposed Cyrus Mistry on the Tata Group. It is when we write the, long history of Tata Group under Mr. Tata, this Cyrus Mistry episode, it doesn't really, shine light on any one of the players involved. So in that sense, but under his own watch, the company transited or pivoted from the Cyrus Mistry era to the Chandrasekaran era, and now we have a very, very stable and durable company, of course, with inherent challenges of running so many companies, many of them listed, many of them not listed, and so many diverse basket of companies, and that leads to the larger question of succession plan. But in summary, I would imagine, Mr. Ratan Tata as being extremely distinct, as I mentioned in the opening. I have these 5 P's to describe him. First and foremost is purpose. He was one industrialist who identified purpose as his key priority. Second is, perseverance. Look at the, Air India story. Look at the Tata Motors story. From, purpose to perseverance to, then passion and, and pride. There is great pride in Tata brands that the world looks at when it comes to the India story.
Right.
And finally, profit. Normally, we have seen today profit is the top of the order when it comes to objectives of a business enterprise. In this case, profit came at the end.
All right. And since we are short on time, I think it's also important to understand what happens after Ratan Tata's death. We know of his legacy, but we also want to perhaps get a sense of the succession planning at Tata Sons and Tata Trusts, where he leaves a void.
I mean, the story will unfold. I don't have complete picture. Nobody would have a complete picture. But there's something called IS and TS. TS at times is being described as more powerful and more efficient than IS. TS is Tata Administrative Services. So, it's not an official nomenclature, but it's an unofficial nomenclature. And the fact that Mr. Ratan Tata invested tremendous faith till the end in Mr. Chandrasekharan shows that in terms of the professional management of the company, there's no challenge. But in terms of who controls the trust, the very fact that we have such a large group where it draws power from a trust rather than a private shareholding pattern is significant. We don't have many Indian big enterprises where a trust runs the company as large as that.
Absolutely. And in fact, Tata Sons controlled by Tata Trusts, about
That's
55%.
No, so Tata Trust is the brain power, the money power, the ideological power.
And, let's quickly also run through our viewers as to the last few years since Ratan Tata became the chairman emeritus of the Tata Group. In your assessment, in your understanding, apart from all the initiatives that we saw by the way of him building that home for, old age people, for them to find love once again in life, or from that to building schools and hospitals for stray dogs, which was one of his loves since very early on. In your assessment, the last few years, since 2016, what were the key significant landmarks that you can recall of Ratan Tata?
I said purpose. Purpose means equals compassion. I think, compassion was one of his key priorities, whereas he didn't lose sight of the business objectives.
Absolutely.
If you're able to marry the two, it's significant. Second is that, his ability to invest in young as an entrepreneurial objective. The number of startups that he has invested personally as Ratan Tata, and many of them are unicorns today, and the range of subjects that he's picked up. AI, machination, machine-led ideas, then compassion projects, compassion projects. So in that sense, it's a phenomenal range. It shows a phenomenal vision.
And the depth of a man.
The depth of, I do believe that some of the projects that he did, which at that time in 2008, 2009 looked very, very bright, may not be that bright like the Tata Chorus deal. It was a great success story, a great Make in India story before Make in India became so popular. But the fact of the matter is it was essentially resting on a huge debt that we took from global debtors, which might not have always been the right strategy. But we make these decisions in the emotional space. He brought in Nano. The verdict on Nano is, out. But that doesn't mean that his love for bringing a better quality of life for an average Indian ever got diminished.
All right, and as audacious as he was, we are remembering, of course, the legacy of Ratan Tata. Once famously said, I don't take right decisions, I take decisions and make them right. And with that, it's the end of this show. Thank you very much for watching.
It's said that out of 7 diamonds across the world, 5 are cut and polished in India.
Don't forget, US is the largest consumer of, polished diamonds. And the